What is up, art geeks? Today we're going to talk a little bit about how you decide what style you want your artwork to be in. This question is pretty big. This is a tough one because we all go through this at some point in our lives. What do we want our art style to be in? So once again, I'm going to use ChatGPT to help me with this discussion. Now, before I get into all of this, I want to quickly mention that the video you are watching is actually part of a tutorial on my Patreon page. If you want to learn more about painting portraits in an impressionistic style, maybe throw in a little bit of expressionism while you're at it, go check out my Patreon page. I have a ton of impressionism portrait painting tutorials, oil painting tutorials, art downloads, a lot of things that I think you'll enjoy. So go check it out. Now, back to my discussion on how you figure out what your art style should be. So ChatGPT, I put in the question, how do I decide what art style I should use in my artwork? And without fail, ChatGPT spit out a nice answer for me. It starts off with saying, choosing an art style for your artwork is a personal and creative decision. Here are some steps to help you decide on the art style that best suits your vision and preferences. Let's see what we have here. It looks like we have 9 bullet points from ChatGPT. So what I'm going to do, like usual, is just read off the bullet points and we're just going to see where it goes. Now, the first one is explore various styles. I do enjoy ChatGPT because it does give you the obvious answers right off the bat. You could ask anybody, well, how do I figure out which style do I want? And they go, well, have you tried all the different styles? Because you're not going to know unless you try them. If I look back to my childhood, my art style was just to scribble things down, draw random things, draw rainbows and landscapes and the occasional person here and there. Even when I was a kid, though, I liked drawing things that I saw in real life, and that was a good indication of the kind of art I really enjoyed. Some people like to just draw abstract and not really have anything based in reality. Some people like a little bit of both. Now, I remember the first real drawing class I had. It was an art class in 7th, 8th grade. And we had to draw a bunch of different things on this big piece of paper, just a bunch of things that we liked. And this was the first time I realized that I actually knew how to draw things from life to a fairly decent amount of accuracy. Was I great at that time? No, not great at all. But I drew this really old school car from like the 1930s. It was like a Ford Shadow or something like that. I forget the name exactly. But I drew this thing without any guides or grids. And then I drew a portrait of somebody that was maybe famous at the time. I can't remember who it was, but I drew somebody in there and I was like, wow, this is actually pretty accurate. I was really surprised by all the individual things that were based in life that I was drawing and how well they turned out. So I knew I liked doing representational art, and that's a pretty big topic, the idea of painting representational art, because there's so many things in life you can paint. You can paint still life, you can paint portraits, figurative, landscapes. There's so many things based in reality that you can paint that's still a very broad topic. So I started to investigate those things. I drew landscapes, I drew some still lifes, I drew all the things that were based in reality. And I like doing all of them, but none of them connected with me more than drawing portraits. Now, when I started drawing portraits, the first few portraits that I drew had a very tight, almost realism to them. I wouldn't say they were perfectly real, but I was going for realism. I was going for that technical accuracy I think a lot of people try to go for when they first get into painting people or drawing people. They think to prove themselves to the world that they're good, they have to make the most realistic drawing or realistic painting known to man in order to show that they have skill. And I think a lot of artists, especially some great artists I see, they go through those motions of seeing how technically accurate they can get. But by the end of their career, by the time they get to maybe their 60s and 70s, they're intentionally drawing more loose. They're drawing almost more like a child. For me, 20 years ago, I was in the same boat. I wanted to draw as realistic as I could. I wanted to see how good I could get with my realism. I got to a point where I felt like I could draw fairly real, and I was very happy with my progress, but I felt like it was lacking something. I didn't think it had the style I wanted. And then when Instagram came out, that's when it really opened up a floodgate of new artists for me to check out that were creating artwork today, that were right there on Instagram, just using the platform to share their work. And then I saw people like Alex Kanevsky, Christian Hook, Lou Ross, David Chevets, Tyle Kim, Andrew Salgado, Henrico Dahlin. Hopefully I'm not butchering all these names. Jeremy Mann's another one. All of these great artists that I found that were creating portraits that were so otherworldly, that were so expressive, so dramatic, so psychological. All of these artists were people that I would gravitate towards. And I thought, this is the kind of artwork I want to create. But the question is, you got to create your own lane. You can't just copy other people's work. So I started obsessing about how can I create my own unique feeling to my work. I like drama. I started becoming more and more obsessed with color and how to use color in a very powerful way. There is always new places for it to go. I'm not stuck in this little small niche where I feel like I'm never going to grow from this particular kind of work. It's always evolving nice and steadily. So great job on the first one, ChatGPT. That one really opened up the floodgates of thought. So let's see what the second one is. We have identify preferences. And I think we kind of touched on this on the first one, but what I found was when I identified my preferences, it was by looking at other artists. So if you are definitely in your early stages of creating artwork, find the preferences, find the artists that you really enjoy looking at, and that's going to give you a great indication of what kind of art you want to create. All right, so the third one is consider your subject matter. And this one is, I don't know if this one is fully accurate. I think it's a good point. I think there's definitely merit in ChatGPT putting this one in there. But for me, if you're thinking of a particular style, just because you're painting portraits doesn't mean you have to be a classic painter where you're very rigid and real and you're not doing anything expressive or abstract. My work, for example, has all kinds of different stylized things that could be applied to many different types of subject matter. You could use my style for abstract, for still life, for portraits. Really anything out there could be used with my style. So I don't know if this one really applies that much. ChatGPT does have one example here. It says, if you are interested in fantasy, a more illustrative or a surreal style might be suitable. I personally don't think that your subject matter should dictate your style. That's just an opinion I have thinking about that off the cuff, but I think that you should leave the door open for any style regardless of your subject matter. All right, number 4 is experiment, and I feel like this one's a little bit redundant by ChatGPT. It's kind of like number 1, explore various styles. If you're experimenting, you're also exploring. So I'm going to skip that one. I feel like that one's kind of redundant, but yes, of course, experiment, try different mediums, try different sizes, try different colors. All those things will really definitely help you with your style choices. All right, number 5 is reflect on your influences. This is a good one. I already touched on this one a little bit about how I like to use Instagram to find the kind of artwork I like. When Instagram first came out, that's what influenced my work a lot, seeing a lot of modern day painters. Those were the kind of artists that influenced me. I wanted to see who was doing the cutting edge type of artwork. I would say your influences will change quite a bit through your life. When you're a child, you have different influences like cartoons and anime, things like that. Once you become an adult, your influences will definitely continue to change. So just be open to the fact that your influences will shift. The second you see a brand new artist you've never seen before, maybe they'll have something that you really want to put into your work. So be open to your influences. Always let those evolve with time, and your artwork will evolve naturally with it. All right, now the next one is Consider Your Medium by ChatGPT. And I like this one because it's a great example of where I was in my earlier years when I was an acrylic painter trying to become a portrait painter with acrylics. It just wasn't happening. My medium was holding me back. So when I shifted to oils, the first oil painting I did was of a still life of this little stuffed animal. And I was instantly amazed by how much easier everything was as far as creating shadows, creating the accuracy that I wanted. Everything changed the second I changed to oils. So I think that's a good one. Considering your medium is definitely going to have an influence on your style. All right, now the next one is think about your message. And I will agree, this one is something I think about in my work, how my abstraction, how my expressionism, how loose my painting strokes are will change the message of my work. If I was to paint really hyper real with a lot of tightness to my brush strokes, I think the message would be completely different. So I think my work's a great example of why your message will be affected by your style. All right, now number 8 from ChatGPT is be open to evolution. I think we should all be evolving all the time with our artwork. If we get stuck in one particular set of colors or one particular format, I think it will start to get boring for you and the people looking at your work. So always allow your work to evolve. My work didn't look like this 5 years ago. My work still had a lot of depth of shadow and a lot of contrast like it does today, and it still had a lot of texture and brushstrokes, but I wasn't using color anywhere near to the same effect that I am today because I'm allowing it to evolve. Now, in another 5 years, I don't know what I'll be doing, but I'm sure it's going to evolve one way or the other. All right, now finally we have seek feedback from ChatGPT. It loves to throw this one in. Whenever I ask it a question regarding artwork, it loves to throw in seek feedback. Now, I don't think it's wrong to have it thrown in here. It always seems to be the last one on their list, which I always find interesting. Seeking feedback is not a bad thing, but like a broken record, I'm going to say it again. Whatever you do, don't get your feedback from family and friends, especially if none of them are artists. These are the last people you want your critiques from. I would search out other artists, especially artists in the same genre as you, because if you talk to an abstract artist, but you're a portrait painter, they're not going to have the kind of feedback you're maybe looking for. So seek your feedback properly, make sure you find the right people, and then you still need to have your own vision and understand that nobody's going to see your vision the way you do. All right, well, that was all 9. I think that it had some really great topics in there. I think as an artist, you just need to be as diligent as you can on figuring out your style, allow it to grow, allow it to evolve, always look for influences, find feedback, think about your message. All those things really do come into play. So thank you again for checking this out. Go over to my Patreon account if you want to learn more about portrait painting, oil painting in general, and you will also get some great art downloads every month. Thank you so much, you art geeks, for checking out another one of my videos. I will talk to you again very soon.